Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Opposite the Monitor, and today we're back with Unity and this ridiculous and asinine, monetization process that they have in place on developers, and it's just, I mean, I can't even begin to get into how retarded all of this sounds. But we have the new information with Unity. We have a lot to cover today. Also going to talk about some things going on with like layoffs at Ascendant Studios with Immortals of Aveum, as well as some information about Spider-Man and everything that has happened. But actually, to kind of kick it off first, the first thing we're going to get into though is that a new state of play happened. They announced some more information with Spider-Man and stuff like that, as well as, a bunch of other little tidbits and games and things that they kind of showed off. Very, very quick one. I think it was about 20, 25 minutes, maybe, almost maybe 30 minutes of a showcase. So it was very, very quick, very short showcase. But, to start off, man, Unity reveals plan to charge per game install, drawing criticism from development community. If you haven't heard about this entire issue yet, there are a plethora of different content creators that have already talked about this, gone in detail with this particular thing. I'm not going to per se go into too much detail. I'm just going to kind of give an overview of the entire situation, as well as the updates that have come out, and then kind of, give my opinion and my thought process on it, essentially. But they kind of did an update as well, to do a little bit of, clarifying and stuff like that. But initially though, they had this entire graph and model set out to be able to charge per download and the fee and everything associated with it. And then the threshold is like 200K. So, it targets a specific developers and the specific games and stuff that are, successful essentially. But, that's kind of like what the original thing was. But I'm going to go over the updates, and the updates, they had to give some sort of clarification, because this entire model was just asinine and very, very much so stupid, and created a much more, pressured environment for developers and stuff like that. And it's just like you're essentially going to isolate your entire engine and be able to, you're gonna effectively ostracize yourself from the gaming community altogether. And CEO, I think his name is Riccatello. Obviously he was CEO of EA, and I'm not gonna say I'm not necessarily surprised about this, but it's more so like this is like, crony capitalism effectively. This is definitely something that is all, greed based, and definitely something that does not need to be implemented within gaming altogether. And we'll go through this bit by bit, and I'm just gonna, I hope once I go through this, the viewers watching can see that this entire model it doesn't even seem like it's thought out all the way. It seems like they're trying to put the cart before the horse, and it's like you can't even implement this correctly because you haven't even thought all the way about it yourself. It's some shit that you just kind of like created on the fly, because it's like, hey, we need to try to squeeze as much money as we possibly can, without necessarily even thinking about the entire process. This entire model just expresses incompetency at the highest level within this company. And it's more so just about the fact of this is something that does not make any sense whatsoever, but you're going to forcibly impose this into the community because of monetization, greed, and everything else that comes associated with that. So to kind of start off, they say this basically Unity giving Unity giving their clarification on it. Yes, this is a price increase and will only affect a small subset of current Unity editor users. Today, a large majority of Unity Editor users are currently not paying anything and will not be affected by this change. The Unity runtime fee will not impact the majority of our developers. They go on to say that the developers who will be impacted are generally those who have successful games and are generating revenue way above the thresholds we've outlined in our blog. This means that developers are still building their game, or still building their business and growing the audience of their games will not pay a fee. The program was designed specifically this way to ensure developers could find success before the install fee takes effect. Now, this is definitely, this isn't something that I haven't seen before. And this is the thing, if you can kind of arcing this back to Epic, like the way Epic does it is a very much so like under the rug and very nice passive way to go about getting this same outcome. Unity has, they just, have like a very much so Wall Street goon CEO heading their company who doesn't really give a fuck per se. He doesn't really care about how this shit is done. It just needs to be done. I don't care about the model. I don't care about how the model is set up. At the end of the day, if you have a successful game, we are coming for you and all of the revenue you've been able to generate. And this is just, it doesn't make sense. But the comparison that I'm making with Epic Game Store is that they kind of do this same thing through their exclusivity program. Like, the only difference is that Epic Game Store, which is a nicer way of doing it, they give you money up front and then they will tax your ass on the back end and will take a high percentage of the game's revenue that it generates after the fact. So, Epic Game Store does the same thing essentially, but this is way more egregious. This is way more like top tier, This is more so just like, I don't care. I don't give a damn. And I don't care about the optics of this. They kind of care about the optics given the fact that they got to come back, re-clarify and do some more clarification on top of that, which will, kind of get into how this entire model isn't even thought out all the way. But they go on to say that Unity has clarified the changes are not retroactive or perpetual. That's probably one of the only good things, noting it will only charge once for a new install. So before, the concerns were, we're going to charge per install and everything like that. And it's like, well, how the hell is that going to work if people pirate the game, if people, install it, install it, then uninstall it, then install it again? Like, how does that work and stuff like that? So it's like, they also kind of go on to kind of like, talk about that later on, but it's like, there's thousands of games that have been built, hundreds of thousands of games have been built on the Unity engine and stuff like that. Like, how far does this go back? So luckily, it's not retroactive, essentially. And luckily it's, it's not perpetual neither. So that's great. They also say that, however, while it won't be charging for previously made installs, fees do indeed apply to all games currently on the market, meaning should any existing player of an older game that exceeds Unity's various thresholds decides to reinstall it after January 1st, a charge will still be made. Now, this particular part has been clarified in the next piece that I'll bring up later, but this is so much so just like a general understanding of, them not like they go back later on to kind of clear that piece up. And it's like, okay, now you're just kind of building this out as more attention and as more negative feedback is being created as you go, which indicates that you don't necessarily know exactly how this model is going to function. Essentially, you haven't thought about the negative ramifications that will come with implementing this model. You've only thought about the positive outcome you could possibly derive from milking, successful development companies or successful games that developers have created. You know what I'm saying? So Going on, though, they also say that it has, for instance, revealed developers will be charged based on its own internal assessment of what it believes to be an accurate number of new installs. As determined by a proprietary data model, it says it won't fully detail, only noting it believes the system gives an accurate determination of the number of times the runtime is distributed for a given product. What in the fuck kind of like, what is this? Like, this effectively sounds like a it sounds like the Wall Street Goon proprietary engine that was created for real estate to be able to determine the cost of living for, you know, rent prices and shit like that. It's like what like who, like this proprietary model is something that, you know, you don't even want to give full details on, but you just want us to believe the fact that, oh, it gives the most accurate, you know, determination of the number of times or the runtime is distributed for a given project. Like, what the, like, come on, man. This shit just does not make any sense whatsoever. You know, if you're going to state that you have a model and you're going to state that you have a proprietary data engine effectively to be able to determine whether or not the information is accurate or not, the least you could do is be open about how this particular product functions, or how this particular, I'm assuming it would be like an algorithm or some sort, or like a detection platform, a detection software to be able to determine, you know, the given data that's been fed into it. So I just want to understand exactly how this shit functions, because it doesn't make any sense. And you don't even want to give full detail on it. You already doing something scummy and schemy to begin with, and then not necessarily giving any tangible reassurance as to, you know, how this entire thing is going to function and play out. So they go on to say that Unity has also failed to shed much light on how it plans to prevent fees being applied to pirated games, or in instances where excess installs might be carried out maliciously. They kind of go on in a later post in another clarification to be able to clarify that point as well. I'll speak about that later. All questions on the subject from concerned developers have been met with the stock reply of, we do already have fraud detection practices in our ads technology, which is solving a similar problem, so we will leverage that know-how as a starting point. What in the hell? So this isn't even something that isn't even foolproof yet. You came out here and made this entire policy to try to change how much revenue you can be able to accumulate from the many developers that use this engine to create games. You haven't even thought about how you're going to be able to detect fraud all the way. Labeling a fraud, you have an ads technology that is solving a similar problem, and you're going to leverage that know-how as a starting point, which means that you haven't even developed anything specifically for this yet. What in the hell? This shit ain't even means tested. You haven't even done the work to be able to implement this shit out. What in the hell? This type of stuff right here is just like, this is kind of what makes me like give up hope when it comes to, you know, the progression of things within this market, you know, and it's made me change my outlook on how a lot of things are being made and developed and stuff like that today. So going on, Unity, that a developer, or they kind of talk about, you know, the definition of an install, and according to an Axios reporter, he received some clarification from a Unity developer that will be charged every time a user installs a game. So every time a user installs a game, including each time they choose to delete then reinstall it. Additionally, every new device is installed on will count as a chargeable install, making it clear the company plans to accrue fees far and above the number of individual sales of a game. So, and they kind of go on to clear this up, which I'll talk about later as well. But effectively though, this is what the CEO wants. And the Riccatello guy, who's the CEO of Unity, who also was the CEO of EA, a lot of people are making comparisons to the fact that he wanted to charge gamers at EA for the game Battlefield $1 per bullet, or I think it was like $1 per reload. This is effectively his dream, to be able to effectively charge like micro transactions. This is probably the actual definition of a microtransaction. Being able to just charge for any and every small piece of any type of whether it be a video game, whether it be a development process, whether it be the install, whether it be anything like that, finding a way to charge people for something. Everything has to have a subscription. Everything has to have a monetization associated with it. Everything has to be derived from monetary gain. This is what you see with BMW and them charging for heated seats, a feature that's already built into the car. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is just ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. And, you know, to go on to the next to the next article that we have here, where they kind of backtrack a little bit, which I don't fully see this as a backtrack. This is just more so just like a clarification. But so the new, updated information about this now is that now Unity said this change would only come after a user first installed the game. So the fee will only be associated with an initial install. But that does not excuse charging a fee associated with an install on a completely different device. That's still going to be there. Unity says this change will stop players install bombing a game, deleting and reinstalling it repeatedly to invoke multiple payments, but multiple charges will still be levied if a user downloads the same game across multiple devices. Why? What for? What's the purpose? What's the purpose other than you wanting to exacerbate this issue even further? It doesn't make any sense, and you're not going to get the results you're looking for. What you're going to get is a bunch of developers leaving that engine and either going to develop their own proprietary engine, or they're going to go use Unreal Engine. And, this doesn't seem enticing for a up and coming indie developer. You want to know what seems more enticing for an up and coming indie developer? Oh, I'm finna go accept this exclusivity deal from Epic Game Store. They're gonna give me $2 million up front and help me be able to develop this game further. And then what I can do is on the back end, I think on the back end, Epic Game Store gets about 30 or 40% of revenue from my game. So it's like, that's way more of a deal. I'd rather go use Unreal Engine 5, in the Epic Store that comes with a whole host of different tools and everything at your disposal, as well as, new technology and supported technology being levied and inputted, like literally updates always coming out for the Unreal Engine platform. And it's like, this isn't going to get you the results you're looking for. This is only going to get you ostracized. Like, people are going to leave this engine, and we'll talk about that in an upcoming article that I have set for us. But yeah, this is asinine, bro. This is ridiculous. Developers already have a hard time in the gaming industry as it is, anyways. Like, developers are expendable resources in the gaming industry. Like, this is just something added that doesn't even really make any sense, and it's going so much far. And I've heard different creators speak about the legality of this and being able to make this even official in a legal sense and stuff like that. Whether or not this will be pushed out or not, I think this may just be pushed under the rug essentially. But it's more so just like it doesn't make any sense at this time, man. Like, it's just crazy. So going on, they say another point raised by developers is Unity basing charges on downloads could severely impact studios who have released their games into subscription services like Xbox Game Pass, which exists to get titles downloaded as widely as possible. On this, Unity has now said download fees will be charged by Unity to subscription service owners. So Microsoft, in the case of Xbox Game Pass, Microsoft ain't going for that shit. Microsoft is not going for that. I don't care what you say. You're not going to. You know what? I'm effectively just going to say that I don't even think this particular model is going to get like sent out to, you know, all developers and stuff. I legitimately think, you know, this is you because effectively what you're going to do is you're going to wreck this will indirectly wreck Microsoft's subscription service effectively. And what's going to end up happening is that, like, you know, the only other way that you can get around this is not developing your game on the Unity engine. Effectively, that's essentially what that will be. And then all of the Unity developers will end up stop developing games for Unity and making games either on their own proprietary engine or making games on Epic Games Store, on Unreal Engine 5. So, you know, like, and it's like, you know, I mean, effectively what could also happen too is that Microsoft could just remove any Unity based game off of the Xbox Game Pass platform. So I mean, like, you're not going to tank Xbox's Game Pass subscription. That is not going to happen. Microsoft is not about to let you do that. So, like, you're not about to charge Microsoft with nothing. You're not about to do that. So yeah, like, you're effectively either going to ostracize the engine that is a popular engine. Games like Genshin Impact are downloaded onto this, or, you know, you're either going to ostracize the engine, or what you're going to have to end up do is you're going to have to go through all kind of legal troubles with Microsoft. And Microsoft definitely has enough capital to drag stuff out to the point to where you'll end up wasting resources. Effectively, you'll bleed the company out of money. So I mean, like, you know, there's not any good positive path to go about doing this. You know what I'm saying? It's just it's a foolhardy, frivolous type of effort to gain immense revenue off of successful video games and developers. That's it. And it's stupid and it's asinine and it doesn't make any sense. You know, but hey, those are my 2 cents. Those are my thoughts on this entire thing, man. It's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. But moving on though. Oh yeah, just to kind of, like, you know, bring it full circle with this and how developers are, you know, going to leave the platform. Cult of the Lamb developer threatens to delete game on January 1st amid Unity backlash. And they kind of like put in a nice little, you know, tidbit on Twitter saying that buy Cult of the Lamb now because we're deleting it on January 1st. I don't know if they'll go all the way out and just delete the game. Essentially, I think this is more so just like a, you know, probably, like, I won't say like an emotion based response to it, but more so just like a heat of the moment type of thing. They also kind of go on to, you know, call, you know, Unity stinky, I guess, with their kind of like public service announcement effectively. And also Devolver Digital also had their own, you know, 2 bits on this as well, so they 2 cents on this as well, where they definitely include what engine you're using in game pitches. It's important information. Yeah. So, yeah, man, like, you know, there's been other game developers too who have said that, you know, they're going to, you know, moving forward, no more games won't be using Unity's engine anymore and stuff like that. So you're already going to ostracize this engine, and you're already damaging the reputation of the company as it stands now, as well as you're going to inhibit future, you know, developers to be able to use your engine and pay for these services. It's stupid. But moving on though, we got some more information. Spider-Man 2 main story lasts around 17 hours like predecessor. That's great. I've always advocated for, like, shorter, less bloated games effectively. They go on to say that the developers have revealed the game's length, claiming that Marvel Spider-Man 2 will offer a similar length as the first game. With $70 prices and infrequent releases, players are looking for longer games. Therefore, a game's content and playtime are crucial to its success in the modern AAA industry. Part of this I agree with, and part of this I don't agree with. Yes, therefore, like, a game's content and playtime is crucial to the success of the modern AAA industry. But my thing is that you can, like, the playtime doesn't necessarily have to be, like, 80 to 100 hours, and this is kind of like what the developers go on to say. It's like, me personally, and I can't really speak for everybody, but for me personally, I don't care to play a game for 80 to 100 hours if it doesn't warrant the game being that long. So like games like Baldur's Gate 3, right, where that game can easily be 200 hours. I think it's a lot longer than that, but like that game warrants it because there are multiple different endings, multiple different story elements, multiple different dialogues, depending on the type of character you create. That game justifies the amount of playable content, or not even playable content, but story elements within that. You know what I'm saying? You're easily going to get more than 17 hours out of Spider-Man 2, just based on the side quests alone and the different like events and activities and collectibles that you can be able to find throughout the city. So you're easily going to get that out. So the 17 hours is just a story. But yeah, like one of the things that I kind of like, that I like about this is that that I wanted to point out was that Ryan Smith came out and said that we don't want this to be an 80 to 100 hour game. That's not where we want to be. And I like that mindset. It doesn't need to be 80 to 100 hours. Granted, you know, you want to find ways to justify that $70 price tag. In my opinion, just make higher quality games. Make sure that the game is very, very optimized. Make sure that, you know, the graphical fidelity is using you can be able to use the maximum amount of potential out of the PS5. You know what I'm saying? Like, make sure that the story is really good. Like, there are things that you can do outside of making the game just filling the game full of bloat, you know, unnecessarily. Filling the game full of bloat unnecessarily that can increase the value of a game. It's just dependent upon how you utilize the tools at your disposal to be able to create this game and make this game very much so, I guess $70 worthy or very high quality. But I mean, like, Spider-Man is definitely a high quality game. You know what I'm saying? You know, and I know a lot of people like kind of criticize like the graphics, I guess, whatever like that. But like I said, it's something that can be increased over time. You know, like another thing too is like, it doesn't necessarily have to just be $70 worthy or $70 worthy out of the gate. Yes, the game has to function at a high level for it to kind of like ease you into paying $70 for it. But you can increase the value of it by adding free content after the fact. You know what I'm saying? Or if you're trying to do like an expansion or something like that, which was associated with the original Spider-Man game, you charge $20 for it. Like, it's something that, you know, you can justify the price without necessarily it being associated and tied to the length of the game effectively. But yeah, I like this, man. 17 hours is, you know, good. Like, you know, like, I mean, I just beat Mortal Kombat 1. I think that was like a 6-hour game. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't that long, you know, and, you know, I'm still playing the game. The game's enjoyable. So this is great news. This is good. I like the new mindset that's coming with developers now, where it's like, we don't need to do unnecessary bloat. We don't need to make a 100-hour game for the sake of making a 100-hour game. We don't need to do a open world game for the sake of making an open world game and not fill it with nothing. You know what I'm saying? It's just, this is the mindset that I like to hear from developers moving forward. But we'll go on. We got some more information about Forza Motorsport, and this kind of put me on edge a little bit with this. But Forza Motorsport is Xbox's live service car RPG, and that's a great thing. When I first heard this, I was like, live service has never been a great thing. Live service, in all of the times that I've seen it implemented in other games, just looking back on history, has never been a good thing. It's always been terrible. I mean, of course, there's exceptions like Rainbow Six Siege, but even like that game had to like change the way that it functioned. Not function, but it had to change what like Rainbow Six initially was, which is like a more like serious type of shooter, not like a, you know, more so like they had to kind of change it to make it more, not gonna say like Fortnite or nothing like that, but added in all type of abilities and stuff like that. And it's just kind of like, you know, for me, that game had to change from what the core of it was. But they go on to say that a big part of that modernization is moving to a live service model. And they're kind of, you know, talking about how Turn 10 Studios kind of had to rethink with the new console generation, the more modernization and everything like that, you know, which the last Forza Motorsport was back in 2017, which I don't think, you know, I don't necessarily think like that's too long ago. Like that's not that long ago, you know. But okay. So where Forza Motorsport is now more of an ongoing platform built to support consistent updates and content drops instead of having distinct releases at a regular cadence. Sounds just like a generic live service to me. But what kind of reassured, you know, me is the details they'll get in that Chris talks about, the creative director, later on in this article. But they go on to say that from an architectural and code perspective, with so much of it server based, we can change things on the fly, like updating physics, parameters, changing content from the start, and we had to make sure we were agile. So I mean, that's all good. Like that's one good thing about that, it being server based. The bad thing is that it's probably going to be an always online game from jump. So you're gonna have a, you know, Gran Turismo type of scenario again. The difference is that can they not have server outages? Can you not have a big server outage day one like Gran Turismo? Can you maintain this particular like live service that you want to, you know, implement? Can you maintain this? You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of where things get iffy for me. I'm all for, you know, delivering updates and stuff like that on the fly and making it quick and fast, and it doesn't have to be like a packaged update that you have to wait to download and all that stuff. Like I'm all for that, but you know, if it's going to always be online because it's server based, can you maintain the server? Are you going to not have a Gran Turismo, you know, scenario again where the servers were out for like, I think a whole week or a week and a half or something like that? Like it's ridiculous, you know? But they go on to say that, and this is the question that I kind of had too. The question then becomes, what does that live service model in Forza Motorsport look like? So I can confirm that the studio is not doing battle passes or traditional seasonal structure, but will instead release updates including features like new cars and tracks, which can then be fit into existing career mode content. This is what reassured me. Well, it's like, okay, no battle passes, you know, traditional seasonal content, none of that. They're kind of taking what Gran Turismo does with their updates, and their updates are just like free updates where they add cars and tracks and stuff like that, like maybe 3 cars and like a track or 2. You know, different type of, you know, like small segmented updates like that, which is nice. I actually like that from Gran Turismo. Additional cups and race series can also be implemented, as well as other free updates to multiplayer. And as he mentioned above, the studio can even make changes to physics and gameplay systems without having to hold off for a new entry. That's great. All sounds amazing. This is the part that kind of reassured me, because I was more so just like, yeah, I'm not on board with live service. I don't want live service in Forza Motorsport. That's not something that I look forward to. I don't like, you know, always online games most of the time, especially for games that don't need to be like that. Like the only kind of server that you should have up is, you know, the one for multiplayer. You know what I'm saying? Like, but you know, if they can hold true to these statements made, which I do not believe developers these days when it comes to stuff like this, you know, this can easily be like, oh yeah, we're not adding battle passes and traditional seasonal structures and stuff like that, you know, but we're gonna add grind to it and make your ass have to spend money on coins and shit to be able to, like, you know, upgrade a car or buy a specific car out of the store, kind of like Gran Turismo was. So it's like, it just doesn't make any sense, you know, to me, really, when you go about it that way. But there's also other elements within this that I read on to kind of figure out, like, okay, maybe it'll be a little bit difficult if they tailor it this way to deliver grind. Maybe this is the buffer to it, to be able to be like, okay, you know, there is a little bit of grind, or there is grind in here essentially, but we have mechanics in the game to kind of combat that, to make it not feel as grindy. So they go on to say that this model then feeds into the actual flow of playing Forza Motorsport, where so much of its career mode is about building your cars as opposed to simply collecting cars and pumping money into them for high-end parts. It's sort of RPG idea where individual cars can level up as you drive them, and experience points are gained based on how well you perform on the track with a specific car. It's not just about gunning for first place. However, I actually like this. I know this may come as like, I don't know if it's like controversial for like, the racing community, I guess, for this to have more RPG elements inside of a racing game like this. But I actually like this because I like detail in the game. I like being able to have a bunch of different tools at my disposal to be able to access specific parts, cars, upgrades, enhancements, specifications, all these different type of things for a vehicle. And this is an idea that I actually like. And this is one that I think that if grind is implemented into the game, this is something that can kind of ease that grind a little bit. Because there are so many different ways to be able to level up in this game versus, hey, you just got to come in, first or third to be able to get enough money to be able to buy this car. You know what I'm saying? So I like the fact that there's more to the car outside of just purchasing, parts for it, making it faster, and then coming in first place. I like that. So they go on to say that, and they kind of detail this new specific system called a segment score system as well. But they go on to say that Forza Motorsport is extremely intricate in how it grades you with its segment score system, which is based on an internal algorithm that calculates the potential of the exact car you're using, factoring in the upgrades you have installed against how fast you get through a turn. You're graded on each corner and sector of a track on a scale of 1 to 10 and awarded car XP accordingly throughout the race. Saki likened corners and sectors to enemies in an RPG, and that's the mentality I had playing through the handful of tracks available for the preview. It genuinely changed my perspective on how I approach races. I felt myself honed in on defeating these enemies. I would assume that he's referring enemies to as like turns on a track. By driving the best I could and accounting for that feedback in my performance to help me improve with each subsequent lap. It works because of the feedback loop of XP and having a consistent and accurate grading system to tell me whether or not I'm getting the most out of my car in real time. I love this. I like this approach to a driving game. You know what I'm saying? Like, all of this is great, because it's like there are systems built in, that can kind of assess the grind a little bit. Now, granted, the grind could also still be felt per se, just depending on how the XP is acquired, how this segment score system judges the amount of XP you receive based on your driving. You could also run into instances where, if it's not enough XP to justify the grind, then it's more so like you still have a grind in the game. So it's very much so up to them, like it could, this could just be like something that's like a guise to be like, hey, we actually have this in here, but we're about to make the game hella grindy. We're going to push you into paying for shit. So I mean, like, cause there hasn't been any like confirmation on like a store or anything like that, which I mean, if we can go down into some of these pictures, you can see that there's like CP, which is, I'm assuming, car points or whatever. I forgot exactly what they're called, but there's specific points you use to purchase things. So I mean, like, that's always a possibility when dealing with these particular circumstances. But all this sounds great, man. If you guys want to check out, there's a lot more detail in this particular article. I'll link in the description of the video. You guys can go check it out, read more about it, man. But from what I can see and tell, Forza Motorsport seems it's like to be shaping up to be a pretty good game, man. Like, I'm excited for this. I'm excited for Forza Motorsport. I'm excited what they can see. I need an alternative Gran Turismo because I just do not want to deal with that grind ever again in a driving game. And that particular iteration kind of put me off of Gran Turismo. And Gran Turismo was like one of the first driving games that I kind of like played back in the day. That was like very much so detailed, not like arcadey, not like Need for Speed or nothing like that. But then like Forza Motorsport came out with the Xbox, and Forza Motorsport was like, man, this was a change. So I mean, I'm excited for this. I can't wait from Forza Motorsport. But go on. We got some more information. XDefiant looking toward a fall release date due to certification requiring more work than expected. So yeah, they failed a submission for Xbox and PlayStation for their approval to be put in the store and to be on their platforms essentially. One thing I will say, man, is that I do like the transparency. Man, XDefiant started off so rocky. XDefiant was just like, it was something that, you know, I was like, oh man, here we go with another generic shooter again, you know. And then like over time they made changes. They removed the Tom Clancy name away from it because it definitely is not a Tom Clancy game at all. But, you know, they made a lot of significant changes to the gameplay, to the mechanics, you know, things like that. And it's more so like it definitely didn't hurt the game at all. I actually ended up liking the game a lot more than my initial impression of it. But Ruben goes on to kind of talk about, you know, having millions of people play your game long before it's ready is not normal. I probably would say that it's not normal in a AAA space effectively, but I mean, like, if you know, there's a ton of early access games that millions of people play all the time. Not being afraid to show an unfinished game to millions of people with all its flaws is not normal. These were real tests and not just marketing events. So when it comes to when we release, the real answer is as soon as we can. So I mean, yeah, like I get it. You know what I'm saying? I like the transparency. I like the fact that, you know, you guys are working on the game and stuff like that. They go on to also say that he goes on to also say that he clarified failing the first sub is normal and pretty much expected by any game. So our later this summer window hasn't moved based on not passing the first sub. That window was based on having to go through a second submission, just trying to be as honest as I can. I appreciate it, honestly. I appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? I wish more developers would do this, would be more honest with their community, be able to kind of tell people like what exactly is going on, you know. Of course you're going to have those impatient people that say all kind of ridiculous shit out of their mouth all the time, but for the most part though, most people are understanding of game development and things having to take time and things having to, you know, be worked on. So I mean, I just want to bring this up because this was like a small little type of, you know, update to XDefiant and stuff like that, because we haven't really heard anything too much about it since then other than this. So I mean, like, yeah, it's great. I mean, you know, keep working on it. You know, I want to play more of it when it's available, you know, when it's fully released and available. But moving on though, we have some more information. The next Mass Effect is expected to skip open world elements from Andromeda. Yes. Don't copy Andromeda. Andromeda was a shit game. Terrible. Awful. God awful. Doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, man, like, this is something that needed, you know, in my opinion, needed to happen effectively. Like, you know, and you know, I don't necessarily like to talk about rumors on this particular, you know, channel effectively. The only reason why I mention rumors a lot of times is because it gives me the opportunity to be able to kind of input my own opinion and expectations and things like that, or like, I guess like a prediction, I would assume. But yes, the open world elements that were in Mass Effect Andromeda, I think open world could work for Mass Effect if it's done right. But the problem is that it wasn't done right in Andromeda, and Andromeda had a whole host of other issues outside of it just having open world elements. So my thing is that, like, I'm glad that, they want to get rid of that and go back to more like a classic form, which they mentioned here. He says that, due to the experimental open world elements that were implemented inside of Mass Effect Andromeda, this has likely encouraged the studio to return to its IP roots, focusing on more linear and focused gameplay like the previous games, placing the narrative front and center. Yes, that's what Mass Effect was all about. It's a narrative-driven RPG, you know. I still think you can add open world elements to it, but not necessarily open world elements, but you can do like more of like, it was a sandbox. Mass Effect was a sandbox type of game where, you travel to different planets and stuff like that, and different space stations and stuff like that. And within the space station, there were a bunch of like things that you can just run around and do freely. So like, yeah, go back to the more sandbox and make it more of an RPG, make it more of a full-fledged RPG. that's very much so story driven. So yeah, man, I think, if this comes to fruition and if this is the plan for BioWare, I think that this would definitely help BioWare. There's also another little tidbit at the bottom that I want to talk about too. As BioWare continues to work toward the nearing release of Dragon Age Dreadwolf, the developer is also making steady progress on Mass Effect. The studio recently laid off 50 developers, but it claims that the development of both projects is going smoothly and remains unaffected. Now, this is my point on this, is that I think that BioWare's future hangs on the success of Dragon Age Dreadwolf. BioWare has had, Anthem didn't do them any favors. So they've had a bad run at it, and they've been quiet for so long too. If Dragon Age Dreadwolf is not successful, I think that EA is going to gobble this company up, and they're going to take what was done on Mass Effect and they're going to push it off onto a different development studio that they're associated with or that they own. And if I had to choose a development studio, I would say Respawn. Let Respawn finish Mass Effect. In my opinion, that would be a good studio to kind of work on Mass Effect. I think Respawn could do a great job with, Mass Effect, essentially, if Dragon Age Dreadwolf isn't a success. If Dragon Age Dreadwolf isn't a success, I could very much so see BioWare being shut down and EA gobbling that entire studio up, possibly laying off a lot of people or dispersing them off to other studios like they've done in the past. So that's kind of my little 2 cents on that, man. I hope BioWare does a great job with Dragon Age so we can get a good Mass Effect game, but I'm very much so jaded and skeptic. I'm very much skeptical. So it's I don't have high hopes, especially with if they can effectively get rid of that modernization mentality and just make a good game and understand what made the original Mass Effect games good, then they could probably have, or what made the original Dragon Age games good, they could survive. They could survive a little bit longer, I guess. But moving on though, we have some more information. Ubisoft Montreal in turmoil amid what developers are calling broken promises. Many employees are fuming over a forced return to office. This is what I'm saying, man. It's you can't tell people, yes, you can be 100% remote and then want to turn around and make them come into the office and then don't give a justifiable reason as to why going back to the office is so important, other than I have to just deal with people that I'm not even really friends with like that for real, or people that I am friends with that it doesn't stop me from hanging out with them regardless. We hang out outside of work. So it's just the mindset behind this and why so many CEOs want people to just, well, not want, but the public information they put out there to drum up or to make people think that's the reason why they want them to come into the office. So they're going to say on September 11th, most of the over 4,000 employees at Ubisoft Montreal returned to office at Montreal's Mile Inn for the first time in 3 years, but hardly anyone seems happy about it, and many are furious at what they're calling broken promises from Ubisoft leadership. They're going to say that many of the comments list numerous issues employees have historically had working from the office before as reasons not to return. They're going to list the issues: noisy calls in an open office, increased expenses, and a lack of sufficient equipment or accommodations. But the anger also runs deeper than the inherent problems with returning to the office. Amid a wider company culture of layoffs, game cancellations, and abuse allegations, this mandated office return seems to be the final straw for a number of employees who feel that Ubisoft management's indifference to its workers has gone on long enough. Yeah, I mean, all of those are justifiable reasons as to not want to come back into the office. Why the hell would I want to upend my lifestyle, even though it's not affecting my productivity? You want me to just upend this just because you want me to come into work? That doesn't make any damn sense. You know what I'm saying? It's ridiculous. If games are still being made and still being developed, and good games at least, what's the issue with keeping people at home other than you just want people to just come to work to, populate this expensive ass corporate building that you purchased. It just doesn't make any sense. All the people that you're laying off and stuff like that at Ubisoft Montreal or just Ubisoft in general, you could probably keep those people if you got rid of the damn corporate offices that you had. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it doesn't make any sense. So they go on to say that Ubisoft promises, or one of the other promises that IGN kind of listed from they reviewed documents. Ubisoft promises a hybrid, flexible working environment where 100% remote work will be possible depending on various criteria, such as productivity and impact on the team, as well as the nature of the work being done. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the promises. So they go on to say that IGN reached out to Ubisoft for comment on this story and received the following statement in response. Like many companies in entertainment and tech, we are asking our colleagues to come back to the office for key moments identified by each team. We are convinced that the synergy, in-person discussions, rapid iterations, and a sense of belonging that happens more in person will help us be more effective and agile together and achieve our business goals. I don't know how you can achieve these things being fully remote. I am a fully remote worker. We still have good synergy, and I don't know the difference between having an in-person discussion and a over Teams chat discussion, even though we all use, webcams. Like, the same thing I would tell you in person would most likely be the same thing I would tell you, over a Zoom chat or over Teams chat. Like, I don't understand what's the major difference. What other conversation could I have with you in person versus over a webcam? It doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. Rapid iterations and sense of belonging that happens more in person. What? Like, what? Like, I don't get that. I don't get like you do know you can still have these type of, I guess, sense of belonging. I don't understand how that's a viable reason to come back into the office. So they go on to say that first announced early in June, the hybrid mode goes into place on Monday, September 11th, and we are accompanying our colleagues through these changes, giving them additional flexibility over the next 8 weeks or more to adapt. Open and ongoing conversations in addition to extensive individual accommodation and arrangements are currently underway to ease this transition and the impact on everyone's well-being, which remains our top priority to continue to deliver great games. I guess so. I'm definitely not for making people come back to the office. Like, you give people a choice. If you want people to come back into the office, if they want to come back into the office, let them come back into the office. If they want to be hybrid, let them be hybrid. If they want to be remote, let them be remote. Like, if it doesn't affect productivity and they're getting work done, it shouldn't matter where they get the work done, as long as the work gets done. It doesn't make any sense. Like Ubisoft. Okay, so this particular portion is where comparisons are made between Ubisoft and Blizzard, and how Blizzard kind of, had an exodus situation happen with their employees and trying to force them to come back to the office. So they go on to say that, like Ubisoft, Blizzard has similarly been embroiled in a series of very public upheavals over its work culture, which I didn't, I knew about the work culture and everything like that, but I didn't know they had like a mass exodus. Seen a wave of employee collective action and laid off hundreds over the last few years. And then, like Ubisoft, Blizzard instituted its own similar unpopular force to return office earlier this year. So what happened to Blizzard? Well, according to Blizzard's developers on social media, the RTO policy resulted in a mass exodus of talent so impactful that at one point the company was creating crisis maps of what it could and could not ship with the people it had left. Ridiculous. Like, you're effectively hurting your business because you want to just make people come back to the office, and for no justifiable reason. You can't give a justifiable reason that trumps the reasoning, the reasonings as to why the employee wants to stay home. It doesn't make any sense. The company should be about making money, and that comes through productivity, which employees can provide. it doesn't make sense. Like, why are you trying to down this hill of making people come back to the office? It just doesn't make any sense. Give people a choice. If they don't want to come back to the office and they can still get work done, I don't see the harm in that. I don't see anything wrong with that. But that's just my, point of view on it. But moving forward, though, we got some more information, some more layoffs. Immortals of Aveum dev lays off 45% of staff following up underwhelming launch. This is sad to see, man. Like, I was excited for this game. I still want to play this game and buy this game, but I'm so nervous of buying this game, given my hardware. It's like, I don't necessarily I have a 2080 and an i9-9900K, but it was having issues on a 4090, and it's like, I don't want to spend what I think $60 or $70. I think it's $60 on a game that's not going to run right, and then I'm just going to end up having to, return it via Steam's policy. So it's like, it doesn't make sense until they can actually, fix the optimization issues. But, they kind of go on to say that concerns arose that Immortal of Aveum might be overshadowed by major titles. This worry was compounded by performance issues on PC, which affected even high-end systems. I think this game could have still been successful even with it being surrounded by games like Starfield and Armored Core 6 and stuff like that. Like, what hindered this game immensely was the performance issues. If this game didn't have performance issues and it worked really, really good and it was optimized really good, I don't think that, I think this game would have probably hit its goal. But the problem was that initially when the game released, there were so many reviews of people saying, I can't play this game because it's unoptimized. It stutters. I'm only getting 20 FPS. I have a 3090 and can't run this game. I got a 4090, can't run this game. I think last episode I just talked about Immortals of Aveum and them trying to run the game on a 4090, and it seems like, it does, you wanted to run on hardware that doesn't even exist yet. It's just like, why would you tailor your game to that? So, it's sad to see that, people are losing their jobs again over, decisions being made, but it's like, there's no way around it. If you need to put optimization first. Make sure the goal that you want to achieve can be optimized, can be easily optimized before trying to make it look graphically, intent, or make it look, have a high graphical fidelity effectively. So it just sucks. I really was interested in this game, and I still want to play this game, but I need to hear more information about how they've made the game more stable first before I drop my money on this game and play it. I still have this game on my wish list in Steam, and I want to play this game, Even then, it's like one of the other reasons I want to play this game too is that I could play it on my ROG Ally. But if it can't even run on the 4090, then there's no way in hell it's gonna run on the Asus ROG Ally. So it's like, what's the point? So I'm just waiting until I can be able to get more information on this and stuff. But man, it just sucks that people have to lose their jobs all over again based on a decision that they had developers, are developing the game, but they don't have any decision making into whether or not they, need to focus so much on a specific component of the game. I'm pretty sure there are people at the development studio being like, hey, we probably should do this instead of trying to focus on making it look really good. Maybe we should try to make sure the game actually runs at a solid 60 FPS, maybe we should do that instead. But yeah, moving on though, we got some more information. Borderlands developer Gearbox reportedly up for sale. Oh, more Embracer bullshit happened again. Reuters reports Gearbox parent company Embracer is weighing up its options, one of which is a sale apparently. Apparently Embracer has received interest from a number of third parties. Neither Embracer nor Gearbox have issued comment. I would be really interested in knowing who wants to buy Gearbox. That would be very, very much so interesting. I think Sony could benefit from buying Gearbox. I also wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft bought Gearbox Studio as well. Or Ubisoft. Ubisoft needs new properties anyways. But that is very interesting. I really would want to know who is interested in buying Gearbox, because Gearbox is a very much so in demand company. I would say Borderlands is a very much like very notorious, and given the fact that they got a movie coming out pretty soon too, it's like, yeah, someone could definitely benefit from owning Gearbox. But going on though, Embracer announced it would start to close studios and cancel games as a $2 billion deal reportedly with Saudi government-funded company Savvy Games Group fell through at the last moment. This is what I talk about in my last video, where it's just like, I don't blame Deep Silver or I don't blame Volition for, for Volition going out of business or for Volition being shut down. Embracer Group did. Just crazy, man. Just making deals with Saudi government. Why? For what? They ain't even be trusted. But yeah. Yeah, man. Another studio. Embracer Group is clearing house, man. It's funny because they spent all that money buying up all of those development studios from Square Enix and shit, and now they can't even support that shit anymore. They got to resell that to somebody else now. So it's crazy. But moving on though. Stalker 2 dev offices catch fire and suffer significant damage. What in the hell is going on? First, it was the studio behind Phasmophobia and their office being caught on fire. And now we got this one here where their office catches fire too. What the fuck? Like, if this isn't an additional reason as to why you should probably want to be more remote in the first place anyways, and if you're developing games and stuff, it's like, yeah. How about we just, not be in an office or whatever where shit can just like, where shit is just randomly catching on fire. Like, I probably have more safeguards in place at my home because I don't want my house to burn down versus this random ass corporate building that I have to come to every day, But they go on to say that Prague offices. I need to pause that. I didn't want that to play. So they go on to say that Prague offices of GSC Game World, the development team behind Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl, have suffered significant fire damage. The current extent of damage remains unconfirmed, but thankfully no developers have been injured during the fire. This was first reported on by Vortex, a Czech outlet that reported via several anonymous sources that an electrical fire broke out. So this was an electrical fire. I don't think the one at the Phasmophobia office, I don't think they knew what started the fire. Fire services arrived. 30 people were evacuated from the building, and an estimated 1.5 million crowns, which is effectively $65,000 worth of damage, was done. Following this report, the news was confirmed by devs in the Stalkers 2 community Discord, and they go on to say that it is true. Fortunately, none of the employees or staff were injured in the incident. A fire broke out in our office in Prague on Thursday. Even though the fire was successfully put out, one of the office floors now requires a full restoration. Further details of the accident are still being investigated. We express our deepest appreciation for your questions and the worlds of support we have been receiving. Yeah, man, I'm glad, like, once again, nobody was hurt. It's been a whole bunch of damage happening. I think effectively the game is still on track too, still remains in progress as well. So that's a good thing, man. Stalker 2's are like very, beloved franchise, and it's, there's a cult following behind it. And Stalker, I know a lot of gamers are waiting for Stalker 2, and it's just like having more hiccups in place does not help the release of this game. So I'm glad that nobody was hurt. I'm glad the game is still in progress, man. But damn, like, can we not get any more fires at these development studios? Like, can we just like, do a nice sweep of the building before you let people in that bitch? So then that way, you can be able to like, all right, we're all good. You can sit down and develop the game in peace. We don't have to worry about burning up in here, effectively. But yeah, man, glad everything is great, man. Glad Stalker 2 is in development. I'm excited for Stalker 2. But that's it for today, guys, man. If you guys enjoy the content today, make sure you like the video. Let me know your thoughts on, the whole Unity debacle and everything like that. It's very much so ridiculous. Doesn't make any sense. Crazy. If you guys enjoy the content, subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications so you never miss a video. And I will see you guys next week. Thank you.